Okay. Welcome, everybody. We're going to do a little election recap. I'm here with Rob from The Way Shit Works Now, Bobby from the Bronx,
Hello.
from The Way Shit Works Now podcast. I'm Benjamin Gorman from Tilting at Windmills. We are coming to you from the beautiful city of Barcelona, and we are part of the XPat Files, which is a burgeoning network of folks outside the United States who can continue to speak freely when we don't know if that will necessarily be available in the United States for long. And so
Love
we're
it.
trying to create some alternatives, and we thought we would get together and do a little election recap for everybody.
It was such a big day. And, I just wanted to talk with you, Ben, just to get over this hopium filled day, to
Yeah,
let us know, to fuel us for the fights ahead. We're nowhere near the end, but this was a very good end of the beginning. And I think we just have to keep pushing, but take the time to enjoy the wins. Watch the speeches, look at the results, go start planning
Mhm.
your boycotts, planning your registration to vote, planning getting your friends to vote, planning how you're going to help people. And let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Well, let's talk about some of those wins.
Across the country, all over the place. Felt good. It felt like exactly what was supposed to happen. The American people woke up and their side that's been kind of an entire fog realized, oh shit, we screwed up.
Right.
So
Well, David Plotz, who's one of the hosts of Political Gabfest with Slate, often talks about how you can tell who's winning based on who's having the most fun. And they've
yeah,
been
yeah,
having the most fun at their rallies for years,
right.
and Democrats have been going, oh, I'm holding my nose for this reason or that reason, but I'll reluctantly vote for a Democrat. And this was people voting not just, reluctantly, but affirmatively for Democratic candidates that they really liked. And so that I think was one of the biggest changes we've seen.
Absolutely, and all types, and all corners of the country, and all different types, and people that connected with their voters, which was
Mhm.
absolutely necessary the entire time. I mean, no more like well polled focus group speech. Just
Yeah.
talk to your voters, go out there, speak to them. We've been doing that very well, I think, as a group. Since the fascists took over and started burning everything down. I thought immediately when Dems seized on the opportunity to do town halls when Republicans were refusing them, and then going to their districts and doing town halls was the beginning of something really good.
Yeah,
And
well, I think one of the
then,
biggest challenges for the Democratic Party is when your coalition is large, it makes it very hard to say things where you're not offending parts of your coalition.
right,
And
yeah,
there was a we experienced this as a union too. There comes a point where you have to excise parts of the coalition. You have to say we cannot keep you all happy and still have a vision. And the part of the coalition, which I think Mamdani really represented well, that you have to excise is the billionaire class. Like you have to say, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to keep the billionaires happy, and because they're the ones really pushing the kind of focus group message too. And all the folks kind of up the food chain within these orgs too are going. I have a long term aspiration to be a strategist, and I need to keep the following billionaires happy. And so the real grassroots, hey, you're working for Mamdani because you believe in him, or you work in the gubernatorial candidate in New Jersey whose name eludes me because this isn't the machine. This is more grassroots, liberated folks to say, yeah, we're going to need to raise taxes on the wealthy to pay for things that people value, and that's going to be essential going forward. Like they need to be able to say, this is about what we can do for working class people, rather than this is what we can do for working class people while also not taxing billionaires ever. Like you can't have it both ways.
I think you're totally right. They did that in Colorado.
Hmm.
They're gonna start funding some really good stuff in Colorado, and they raise taxes on the rich. I think school meals are an exceptional thing to
Yep.
raise taxes for. When kids are not hungry, they tend to learn. But you reached on two very good points there that I want to circle back to. And number one, you're completely right that this understanding of the donor class,
Yep.
who I'm not a huge fan of, but instead of like just telling them, get in the fucking line, don't
Yep.
take the wheel, Get on the line. You want the fascists to stop burning things down. We, the people, and this other sane, regular coalition with regular coalition problems will handle this, but you don't get to drive the car.
Right.
You don't get to own the wheel. So I'm fine with you being on the team, but you're not the quarterback. You're not the coach. You're not running shit.
Yeah.
Just get online and let us handle the fascists as we're doing. And it is that consulting class. I've been saying it for a while, man. I'm not the one problem that I have in our coalition, which again, I think the Democratic Party represents. We've said this in other conversations and other shows, is that we're a group of 50 to 60 different groups.
Yeah.
Like it's not one party. We're up against a party that is all about one man. It's a cult of personality. That's not us. And people in New York and Florida and Texas and California and Wyoming and Alabama and all these different states, and then abroad states, and yeah, Puerto Rico and Guam and college Democrats, Democrats abroad. Like there's so many different groups, union affiliates. There's so many different types of groups in this coalition, and it's everybody that doesn't want a fascist boot on their necks.
Right.
Everybody that doesn't want to see this evil shit happening to marginalized communities. We're all together in this. We're all together. And what we showed yesterday is we can make waves.
Yeah.
In a single day, we can make waves. And I believe you 100% we're aligned with telling the donor class, thanks for the cash. It helps a lot. It buys you nothing but a seat to the show. Let
Right.
us take these fascists out. You don't get to run shit. And the consultant class in DC, I've got a little these strategists that haven't been to a supermarket in the past 5 years. Like, let's maybe like replace a bunch of those people with regular union guys from swing states. We'll see
Right.
what happens. Let's see how we
Different kind
talk
of
after
organizing.
that.
Well, I mean,
Right.
part of it is if you're going to be the party where some people are holding their nose and voting for you reluctantly, choose who's holding their nose. And
Right.
so let the donor class go, oh, fine, my stock is going to take a huge hit if Trump tanks the economy. I guess I'll vote for the Democratic Socialists because at least my business, the whole economy won't crater because of tariffs, And so
Right.
make them hold their noses rather than making, a single mom in New York who needs that free childcare and needs that free bus. Like she's the one who in the past has had to go, I'm not getting much from the Democrats, but it's better than the alternative, right? Let's let her have a win, and let's let the billionaire, because there are absolutely are liberal billionaires. Like there are billionaires who are
Sure.
gonna support the Democratic Party based on principle, even knowing it's going to cost them more. This is one of those things where
Right.
we struggle with the kind of language because we're often saying I can't understand why a person in Kansas would vote against their own self-interest, and we have to take a step back and recognize we're asking billionaires to do the same thing. Like you are voting against your own financial self-interest to live in a
Right.
country where it is habitable, right? And so of course, people vote against their own self interest for a host of reasons. And rather than looking down on them and saying, hey, this person is voting against their own self interest, well, yeah, that's because they fundamentally, genuinely believe a fetus is a full human being. Like, that's their reason for voting. And we need to say, okay,
Yeah.
we disagree with you on that, but we're not going to treat you like you're a moron because that is your one issue. We just need to say, but it's not ours. Like our one issue is the child who doesn't have a lunch, who's in third grade, and the trans person who's being beaten to death in a bathroom. Like let's let and that was one of the things that I was really impressed with is the candidates who won didn't throw groups under the bus, or at least some of the ones were most notably.
Bingo.
Mamdani didn't say, "Fine, I guess I'll be the anti-trans,
Yep.
Democrat, and I'll be the anti-immigration immigrant Democrat."
Right.
He was like,
Right.
"I'm an immigrant and I support trans people," and he showed you can still win without
Pro
throwing portions of
choice.
your coalition under the bus, with the exception
Muslim
of
guy
the
is
Democrat.
pro choice.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to do that. And yeah, governors and our other people that won mayors and all across the country weren't doing it by pandering to hateful
right,
radical right wingers to be in a center. And I think like we as a group, a friend of mine put it very perfectly, is that we just have to be okay not agreeing on everything.
right,
Like, there's plenty of like you and I and Lucas and I and the group of our friends and stuff. Like, we agree on a lot of things. We agree
Right.
on most things, but it's not like we're going to agree on every single thing, every single time, every single politician, every single policy. And as long as we're okay with moving forward, and as long as we're okay with putting this fire out,
Yeah.
then I think we're going to do a lot of really good things. I'm pretty proud of. I always say I'm pretty proud of the legislative, judicial, and policy records of the party in general. It's not always a win. You can't. They can't all be winners. It's not always amazing. But I think if you go line by line, blue state
Oh,
versus red
yeah.
state, Democrat president versus Republican president, Democrat mayor versus Republican mayor, you will see a mega contrast that makes my party, which is a flawed coalition, actually pretty decent to vote for. The anti-fascist party, the anti-insanity party, the anti
Right.
maniac party. I don't
Right,
really
but
know
that is
like
one
what
of the
are it
that is
is.
one of the tough things, and Mamdani mentioned this in another interview, and I really appreciated it. Like, we can't afford to be the anti-party. Like, it can't just be this is what we're against. We
Oh
have to be
sure.
able to articulate this is what we're going to do for you, in order to say we're a party of public service. Because the Republicans have this really brilliant model where you say government is the enemy. Please elect me. I will go there and destroy it from within. And then in 4 years, I'll come back to you and say, see, it sucks. Well, of course it
Yeah.
sucks. You went there and made it suck. Like, and but this is
100%.
their mind. They can do this. You can recycle this every election. Say, see how
Yep.
government doesn't work? Yeah, stop electing Republicans. They don't want it to work, right? And so it puts the burden on Democrats every time they get elected to say, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to fight with the people who are going in with the intention of destroying it and try and make it do things for you. And that means we can't just have 51 votes. Like, we actually have to have an overwhelming mandate so that the gears of government can serve people. And we're seeing that a lot of state houses didn't just gain a seat or two seats. They had, I believe it was Virginia had, or maybe it was North Carolina, had like this overwhelming surge,
Oh,
right?
I've
Where
got
they're
a list.
realizing we have to have a super majority.
You've made again. You've made some really, really solid points there that feed back into the entire general conversation. Is that my entire life has been Democrats repairing damage that Republicans
Mhm.
have done, putting out fires that Republicans have set for my entire life, my
Oh,
entire
yeah.
40 years of life. This has been the case in the United States of America. And you're so right about Republicans because they don't actually, some say it, some don't, but the media refuses to hold them accountable. They go into government looking to destroy it.
Right.
They go into government looking to kneecap every element of it that they can't corrupt for their own personal gain or for their political agendas,
And
like ICE now.
if you're sitting at home and you're going, I went into the DMV and I waited for a long time and I was frustrated. And then I got pulled over by a police officer and I was frustrated. They're capitalizing on frustrations of working with an institution. And that's in like people will be frustrated, right? So there's this energy they can already tap into. And the fact of the matter is running around with, a bunch of fireworks in your hands saying I'm going to blow everything up is very exciting. And people go, oh, these
Yeah.
Republican candidates are really, really exciting because look at that.
Right.
They're running around with fireworks that are lit in their hands. And the Democrats are the ones going, can we please put that out? That's not a good idea. You're going to blow your hand off. And that doesn't sound fun, right?
Right.
And so
The
they got the
police.
kind of the sexier model, right? And
Right. The hall
it takes a
monitor.
while to be the sensible alternative.
Right. It takes chaos to realize that sensibility is actually good. It
Right.
takes things being broken to realize when they're working, they're actually good. The whole conversation I had today with my good buddy, who we were just celebrating these wins and talking about my political evolution, because I think I've told you and I've told others is that former Republican, former Libertarian, former, I've evolved on a lot of different things. And I came to the conclusion of like, we, I've, I was these other ideologies because I was like, oh man, like the system, man, and things are
Right.
broken. And there's plenty of things wrong in systems in states and federal governments. But what I didn't know until only recently when I started digging in is that the Republican Party, as a mission statement, has gone out of their way to break the systems that we have, to
Right.
attack education, to attack workers' rights and unions, to attack reproductive rights, to attack healthcare access, to attack libraries and news,
Right.
like, and all these things. I was just like, oh, it's a broken system. Well, yeah, because we have an arsonist party that is
Right.
in charge of burning everything down. And so I will take a flawed coalition that listens to educators, listens to scientists, listens to workers, listens to marginalized communities, and tries to do better. Can't say they get it right every time. Nobody ever could. Nobody ever would. But for an 80 million, such and such, 75 to 80 million person coalition, I think we're doing enough good. And I think we're at a point now, an inflection point now, where things can be a lot better. You can change a lot because the Republican Party has shifted this Overton window that we've talked about on other episodes so far to the right that when a Democratic socialist runs in the biggest city in the country, or the big most powerful city in the country, you could
Both.
say, New York being the yeah, both New York being the financial center of the world,
Mhm.
that nobody is thinking Democratic socialist like Europe is super radical. They're thinking the puppet of donors who was a disgrace, who got ran out of his governor job because he was serial harassing women and being super corrupt, is the rat and is the president. The fascist president is, endorsing him.
Right.
That's the radical option.
Well, and every
Not
single person that Trump endorsed lost. So that
is that
was
right?
also, this was a referendum. Like everyone he went out of his way to, there
Clearly,
were a couple of folks where he was like, I don't know, maybe this person is insufficiently supportive of me because they were busy running as a centrist. Some of those
right.
folks won, right? But all of the far right folks lost. And so Trump's endorsement did not help anyone.
Which
And
is
that's
the
really beneficial.
case.
Yeah.
So for the past 10 years, since 2017, every single time this garbage person is not on the ballot working his grifter shine and exploiting some outside force like pandemic inflation or Russian interference or Egyptian 10 million or a Stormy Daniels, election scheme or a Elon Musk illegal lottery or Russian bomb threats. As when these things aren't happening and super powerful grifter shine, Donald Trump isn't on the ballot, Republicans get smoked every single time. Can I give
Well,
you some
and
results?
this goes to a big difference between the two parties. So the kind of conventional wisdom was, Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love. And that's been the case my whole life, where, no Republican was super excited about George Herbert Walker Bush, right? They were just
Sure.
like, it's Reagan's vice president. We're all going to fall in line, right?
Yeah.
And Democrats were like, we're waiting for the next Bill Clinton, we're waiting for the next Barack Obama. Who's going to be the person who inspires us? And if there's not like a singular individual, then we go, Joe Biden, we got him for one term. His legislative record is amazing, but he doesn't make me excited because he's old, right? And so we have to fall in love. Well, Trump has broken the Republican Party because
Oh
they
yeah.
used to be the party that fell in line, and now they have been told you must fall in love or else you're out, right? I mean, anybody who
Yeah.
was going, well, it's just about the hierarchy, and I've got this, longer term vision to reduce taxes. I don't like the guy, but I'll vote for him. They've been booted, and so the only folks left are the folks who fall in love. Well, the problem with that is you're only on the ballot every 4 years, and so when
Sure.
the fall in love candidate isn't there, they don't show up, and now Democrats are the ones who are becoming more politically engaged and strategic and saying, hey, I may not love my local candidate, but I love, the larger parts of the vision. And that's what we have to
Right.
articulate a lot better. Like, what are we actually going to do for people so that they will show up and say, I don't need the candidate, I need the vision.
And anti is like a misnomer, I think. Protection,
Yeah.
harm reduction are important things.
Yeah.
I want to protect vulnerable people from being attacked by the government with my tax dollars.
Yeah.
I think it's a very valid reason to vote. I
Oh,
think it's an
absolutely.
incredible reason to vote.
I think it's just a
And
framing issue. Instead of I'm
yeah,
going to
right,
protect from the bad, it's let's create a future where people who are trans feel safe. Let's create a
right,
future where people who are LGBTQIA plus know that their marriages will be, and protected is
sure.
not bad in that case, but it's a positive vision. And I think that that's going to be, that kind of rhetorical twist isn't substantively different. rather than we're protecting you from the fascists who are going to take this gay couple's children away. Like that's totally legitimate.
Sure.
But we need to say we're doing positive things, and then people go, oh yeah, protecting Bob and Steve's kids. That's something I believe in.
Absolutely.
It's making that connection feel like this is an affirmative, positive thing.
No, that's actually fair. You're right. The way to frame it can definitely be different. And I like the contrast framing. So
Hmm.
like you just mentioned earlier and what made me realize that like government actually works. Again, former libertarian, former
Right.
Republican, didn't realize but is the legislative record of
Right.
Biden, the former president. The I wrote a 7-page article realizing, oh my God, we can get marijuana off Schedule 1 and lower prescription drug costs and the
Right.
first gun safety law and
And
solve a pandemic. And it made
and
me
things
feel
people don't even
great.
know about. Like it used to be
Yeah.
your airline, you'd go to, take a plane, and your airline could say, sorry, we couldn't figure it out. And for the sake of saving our fuel costs, we're just going to give you a voucher. And I think just about everybody listening here remembers when your airline would give
Yeah.
you a voucher. And under Biden, they were like, no, you have to give them cash. And it totally changed the incentive structure because they knew most
Yep.
people wouldn't use the vouchers. And so it was a way to save money. Well, now they were going to lose money if they didn't make that plane fly. And so, that was a simple fix that the president could pull off without Republican approval to say, no, you actually have to pay people. And there were just tons of those little tweaks that were made that made a huge difference in people's day-to-day lives. Part of the problem was inflation was so high that they didn't want to go out and
Yeah.
say, see all the things we've done for you that are great, because they were hesitant to say we're having a bunch of wins because people didn't feel like things were good.
Right.
But actually, putting inflation aside, and inflation was a real problem,
Of
putting
course.
inflation aside, and even inflation is one of these tricky things because inflation is bad, deflation is much, much, much worse, right?
Of
And so
course.
inflation, not good. Like nobody likes that, but it doesn't cause massive layoffs. And what they could have done to counteract inflation, and this is what they did under Reagan, is you just cause massive unemployment.
Massive layoffs.
And
Yep.
then that does lower things, but for a smaller group, it's far more harmful. What Biden did was spread the pain, right? Instead of a few people losing their jobs, everybody paid more. And that's a hard message to give to people. Like, hey, this is going to cost everybody something, but we're not going to have massive unemployment right after COVID. And it worked. Like,
Right.
and yet you get the inflation down, and you didn't have massive unemployment and a whole generation that lost their jobs and lost skills, and they never really recover. People who lose their jobs
No.
for 4 or 5 years never recover financially. Whereas inflation, if it's bad for 3 or 4 years, you recover, right? So this was a calculation that was made that was painful, but it was the right call.
100%. And also fueled by a once in a century pandemic that killed
Right.
millions of people's, uprooted tens of millions of people's lives, put hospitals to the brink, and then caused a bunch of mass migration of people leaving different states and going back and forth. So a
Yeah.
lot of that fueled most of the pandemic inflation. Then we had a lot of ridiculous, almost insane level of price gouging that the
Yeah.
FTC had a bunch of legal cases on that proved. But no, you're right. I mean, a lot of things
And
that are now getting
mismanagement from the
overturned.
Trump administration that should have been criminalized. Like
Absolutely.
people should have been held accountable. I mean, there's good documentation that Jared Kushner was put in charge, which is weird. Why would you put Jared
Yeah.
Kushner in charge? But
Yeah.
actually came up with a very reasonable plan to mitigate COVID, and they got together in a room and said, "No, it's going to hit blue cities. Let them die."
F
Like
them.
that was a
Yeah.
choice to decide, and then it bit him in the ass because by election time it was spread into rural areas and was killing their voters. But they decided to let a lot of people die, thinking it would give them a political advantage, and I hope the history books will not forget that. That was
Yeah.
very intentional.
They told people to take malaria medicine, and then people
Right?
with malaria couldn't get their medicine.
Yeah,
They
and they told
said,
people to inject bleach, like
oh, so wait, let me say that though. So, like, that is what he did was essentially that, but not quite. And so, I want to get the Republican well technically out of the way.
right,
What
right.
the president of the United States did during a COVID emergency briefing was tell the audience of terrified Americans that U.S. government doctors will be and should be looking into the
Yep.
science behind injecting bleach and light inside the body, which is essentially saying, go inject bleach, and a bunch of people did it and went to the hospital.
Well, and
But the
that's the thing. It's a
technically,
kind of,
schmectically,
it's, this is a kind of stochastic terrorism. You don't have to
oh yeah,
say you should go inject bleach. If you're the president of the United States and you're there and you're talking about COVID and you say, we really ought to look into whether or not injecting bleach works, somebody's going to go inject bleach. You have a responsibility to be more cautious
hundred
than that.
percent, hundred
And so,
percent.
yeah, that whole Republican talking point about that's not exactly what he said. Yes, but if a Democrat had done that, they would be saying screaming bloody murder. The level of hypocrisy is just
Right.
staggering. You have to be more responsible than saying injecting bleach might be a good idea. We should consider it. Like,
Right. The
no,
government doctors should be looking into this.
right.
Actually, yeah,
Yeah,
negligent platform negligence of the president is
yeah,
normal here. And right now, a big part of yesterday is because that pandemic inflation led to higher costs, and which Donald Trump ran on was the
right.
number one issue of the 2024 election, where he was spewing charlatanism again. I'll get the prices down on day one, but he was talking about it in such a way that got him to win. He proceeded to deliver on none of that.
None of it.
Republicans in Congress delivered on none of that. There's a fake prescription drug market, which is already marked up pills, and it's
Yeah,
only for people that don't have insurance, and it's a complete joke based on like 80% markup cut down to 40% markup.
yeah.
But no, they did absolutely nothing to actually lower costs. But can I get you a couple of election results, which I find very, very, very inspiring from yesterday? So I'll swing through. This is Taniel from Bolts Magazine. They handle local government reporting, and I think they're really excellent. People should check them out. They cover their bolts, like nuts and bolts of like state and local government, elections, and they're always a great guide. So from him on Blue Sky, Taniel.bluesky.social. What we know, final edition of the night in three parts. Prop 50 in California wins.
Hmm.
Great one, massive to undercut the Republican attempt at rigging the midterms House representation because they are now doing a bunch of gerrymandering, which does not include votes from the people. These gerrymandered state legislatures are further gerrymandering. In California, they took a vote of the people to tie it directly to Republican actions. Republicans stop, they will stop. The Virginia Dems flipped the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general.
Yep.
Dems gain legislative seats in Virginia, New Jersey, and Missouri. Dems defend the New Jersey governor. Dems win the New Jersey, Virginia trifectas. Mamdani wins the New York City governor, as everybody on earth knows. The PA Dems win the state Supreme Court. Three seats were up for grabs, and Republicans could have won those and then flipped the majority in the biggest swing state in the country
Right.
for times like midterms and presidential elections when Donald Trump is running around saying they stole it, they stole it, they stole it, lying, of course,
Right.
and doing another January 6th, we have now secured the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to have real jurists who will follow the law and the Constitution and do the right things. Maine protected an anti-absentee voting measure.
Yes.
So
Maine
Maine
wanted
was
to
trying.
essentially do the anti version of California and say, or, the Republicans did and say, we're going to make it nearly impossible to vote. And the people of Maine said no, which was wonderful.
Yeah, it protects absentee ballot measures, which, why Republicans are afraid of these things.
Mhm.
Absentee ballots should be protected. In fact, it's a perfectly valid thing that almost every single state that's run by a real government does. It's perfectly reasonable and safe. Alvin Bragg, who indicted and convicted Donald Trump in New York City, won re-election, and so did Larry Krasner. In Colorado, they funded free school meals by raising taxes. My favorite, probably just emotionally, is that JD Vance's half brother got his ass kicked in a mayor's race in
Yeah.
Ohio. PA Dems flipped Erie County executive and Bucks County DA plus sheriff seats. These aren't exactly super liberal areas.
Right.
The Pennsylvania Dems oust all Republicans from the Bucks County School Board, once ground zero of the right wing takeover. Charlotte approves a transit tax. Dems flipped CT towns in New Britain. PA Dems opened two statewide judge seats in Pennsylvania. Oh, wait, no, we got that one. Da, 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 da.
Does he
I
mention
have it.
Mississippi? Because that was exciting.
Yes, I have it here. Three flips in Mississippi.
which I
The
believe
legislature.
changes the power. I think that gives the Dems the majority in Mississippi for, I think, the first time since like the Civil War.
No, but
So,
I think it
well, it wouldn't
broke
be since the
their
Civil War. The first time the
supermajority.
liberals have had power since the Civil War, when the liberals were the Republicans, right?
Right, right, yeah, yeah. And then they all that all switched up around Nixon. Um, yeah. So hold on, I have it here. Oh, and then in Georgia, two statewide offices flipped.
Yep.
There were literally the electric company backed puppets that were Republicans, and the electric company was screwing over Georgians, constantly raising the prices, and the Dems beat their asses too. Statewide in Georgia, which hold bodes well for, I believe, Ossoff is up
Yeah.
for
And
reelection, next year.
Warnock. Ossoff and
Both
Warnock are
are.
their senators. Yeah.
Oh, both are. I didn't know
Yeah.
both were. I thought just one of them were.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm looking for Mississippi, and I believe it's three flips. I got Daniel's entire thing here, but I mean, just win after win after win.
Yeah.
There was basically in New York, Hudson Valley, where I went to college, and my a lot of good friends are up there. Clean sweep for the Democrats, which is
Yeah.
as purple as it gets.
Right.
Hudson County, New York. We're talking Dutchess County, like Hudson Valley, New York. We're talking like upstate New York, not upstate, like as people in
It's
Syracuse and
purple and
people in
middle, right? It's halfway to upstate, right?
exactly, exactly. So you have like the exurbs and the
Yeah.
other suburbs. It's as purple as it gets. Clean sweep for the Democrats. I mean, it was just a wonderful day that showed, as we talked about at the last protest, organized action. Like it matters. It matters so much. And this is just a great way to do it. It's a tool for the moment. It's the tool we need. It's not the only tool. It's not the only thing we can be doing, but it is absolutely an effective one. And I'm just very proud of the actions that we all took. I also think it was very stupid to advertise that you're going to be gutting tens of millions of people's healthcare subsidies and their food stamps.
Right
like
before. Yeah.
right before, and then shut down the U.S. government. So military members are on furlough, and TSA people are on furlough, and air traffic controllers are on furlough. But they did it. But
Well, and
they
this
did
is something,
it.
I mean, for us to certainly keep our eyes on. I was hearing one political theorist who was saying, if you, close down Congress and you just don't open it again, you've essentially achieved a coup, without a shot fired. And so, does
Mm.
the Trump administration have any incentive to ever have Congress come back ever? He's already got the Supreme Court absolutely as under his thumb. We don't know to what extent those jurists are
Yeah.
blackmailed and beholden, but we know they are unwilling to rule against him. I heard a different legal scholar saying this Supreme Court is so concerned that they're going to make a ruling, and Trump is just going to say, no, I will not abide by it, and they have no authority, and then they'll be
No
completely
army.
irrelevant. So it is better for them to either give these very tiny little, maybe we're pushing back, or to just, completely capitulate, rather than acknowledge, very publicly, we are pushing back and being ignored. So the Supreme Court is neutered. Like they are totally powerless. And so for his sake, it might be better to say, close the government forever. And then the only person who is making, real decisions, the only branch remaining is the executive. And so that is, I mean, we need to, I worry
Consider
that people
that.
will put too much faith in the vote. And that sounds like a weird thing to say as somebody who cares a lot about politics. But the vote only has power if the votes count, right? And so if
Fair.
if we were to elect a whole bunch of folks to Congress and hope that after the midterms Congress would flip and be able to do things, and Congress just can't even be put back into session, we need to start talking and thinking about what will we do next if
Fair.
the
Yeah.
shutdown lasts for 6 months, right? What it cannot just
A
be,
year.
yeah, I mean, it could be, well, and even more. Like if it goes through next November, right?
You're right.
What
January
happens when we
2027.
all go to the polls? Because polls are, the elections are run by states. We elect a huge sweep after a year of not having a Congress. And then Trump says, no, we're just not going to have a Congress anymore. So that sounds really dire, but, after a year, I would not put it past him to just go, Congress is not going to be in session.
We have to consider all potential options. Of course,
Yeah.
it'd be insane not to. It'd be insane. I feel it's maybe a little unlikely, but I also can't wipe it out. Like I can't
Right.
completely eliminate that as an option because we have to think of all possible options, like him using the Insurrection Act on Election Day.
Yep.
is an option. They're going to do anything and everything to hold on to power. They're not
Yeah.
just going to say, "Oh, we lost a fair fight. All right, here's the power. Now impeach us."
Right.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So I agree with you. We have to be thinking on every single level what possible scams and schemes they can use. I like getting precedents in place before
Yeah.
that kind of thing happens. And
Well, and
about
also, I mean,
SCOTE,
this goes to something else we were talking about after No Kings. When people get engaged and involved, they remain engaged and involved. And so, I mean,
yes.
people who say, "Oh, No Kings didn't matter," No Kings mattered yesterday, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
a lot of people went out and went, I'm not going to forget to vote because I marched." But another thing that happens, and this is something that is kind of unfortunate, but we should acknowledge, is there is a measure of just a tide where people will say, "Oh, I'm noticing the people around me all feel this way, so I guess I do too." And that has
sure.
favored the Republicans. Oh, I'm seeing images on TV of these big rallies. I guess everybody in my town supports Trump. I will too, right?
Sure.
And now it's, oh, I saw a bunch of people in my town were out on the street. There's a real sea change. I want to be engaged and involved in that. And so, everybody out there who's listening to this who went out for No Kings, you did more than move a vote. You moved multiple votes because people saw you and
Without
went,
doubt.
there's a tide and I want to be a part of that. And that kind of energy could make a difference if Trump says, we're just not going to have a government. People need, now need to go, I remember taking to the streets and I need to do so again because this is getting more dire.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. And it fuels our historically cowardly corporations
Right,
to say, well, wait a minute, you can't cancel government. 30 million people are going to come out on the streets and they're never going to buy our product again.
right. Did you see
There's a
that
whole element of it.
My brother was pointing this out to me. We were talking about this yesterday. Walmart complained to the federal government about discontinuing SNAP, which I mean is so it should be going
Yeah,
because Walmart is a huge,
the workforce.
that is a windfall for Walmart that they can pay their employees so little that their employees then need SNAP. But
Right.
Walmart is going to lose a ton of money because they are one of the biggest beneficiaries of SNAP. And so
Yep.
they said, "Hey, government, and so it is ironic that the feds will say, "Okay, fine, for the Walton family, we'll restart SNAP. We're not going to restart SNAP for poor people. We'll do it for the Waltons, right?" But I'm to the point where I'm going, I don't care as long as those kids get to eat. Like do
Right.
listen to whoever you need to listen to. But you're right. Even the big corporations are saying this is really bad. Like this is going to hit the bottom line.
And the tariffs for Walmart too. I mean, listen,
Oh
it
yeah,
makes strange bedfellows. I mean, listen, Dick Cheney is probably roasting in a jet fuel fire of hell, but he deserves absolute credit after January 6th for coming forth and going after Trump for his totalitarian wannabe fascist behavior. George friggin' W. Bush didn't.
right.
Dick Cheney at least came forward and did that. So, like I
And
said, I'm
said
not
publicly that he was
celebrating
voting
the
for Harris, which was
right,
not something he had to do. Like he could have
right.
said, I don't like what the Republicans are doing and where things are going, and I don't like Trump. Who are you voting for then? And they all get all
Yeah,
mealy,
Mike
and
Pence.
they're like, maybe I just won't vote this time. And he was
Yeah,
like, no, I'm voting for Harris. And that was, I mean, the guy is responsible for, millions of deaths. He is
horrible
not a
death.
good
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
but give him
not at all.
credit. He at least had the courage to say, we got to do what's right and vote for Harris, even though it's not my party.
And I only bring that up because he did do that, and so many
Mhm.
Republicans refuse to do that. And so it makes strange bedfellows. Like if Walmart is going
Right,
to get people fed,
right,
if ABC is going to actually stand up against the president trying to fire their late night hosts,
right.
if I just feel like it becomes we set ourselves up to be a bulwark against the worst impulses of this fascist administration by remaining unified, by remaining organized, by taking to the streets and taking to the polling booths. I think, and the boycotts, obviously, goes without saying that our boycott power is unbelievably powerful. We can bend them to our will if and when we need to. And yeah, I agree. Like, if the government, if the puppet boy Mike Johnson still doesn't open the house
Yeah.
in seven,
I
eight,
mean,
9 months,
can
we have to
you
start
imagine that
talking.
guy's legacy? Like this guy is going to go down
Oh,
as not just the worst speaker, but like the speaker who threatened the existence of his Congress. Like and it's so strange to think. I mean, this is Johnson is a really great insight into kind of the way hierarchy betrays everyone involved, right? Because
right.
these authoritarians are not like, if you toe the line, then we will promote you. Like at the end of this, Mike John, there's no reward for him. He is at the absolute height of his power. He's not going to be President Mike Johnson at some point. And yet
Nope.
he has had to debase himself so much to prove his
Oh,
loyalty. And they had to find a guy willing to do that and to be that kind of sleazeball that now his legacy for all time is going to be he's the guy who stood up and said, I don't know anything about what's going on around me, over and over and over, just totally abjectly humiliate himself and let the Congress fail just to keep the president happy. And,
yeah.
nobody's going to go, oh yeah, Mike Johnson, I remember him. He was great, right? Today people are quoting Tip O'Neill. Nobody is going to ever quote Mike Johnson except as an insult.
Yeah, and it's like had he just been some random congressman from Louisiana or whatever the hell, he never would have been mentioned in the history books ever. But because he's the possibly the worst speaker of the House in
Right?
history, and he's going to live forever as being a complete advocate, abdicated his entire job
Yeah.
responsibilities and power to a president because he needs to keep the votes to keep his job. And you know what's crazy? Somebody brought up something earlier that I listened to that it might not be as long term of a concept of keeping the House closed because there was a special election in Tennessee last night that Republicans were able to hold on to. So technically, they might be able to negate the 218th vote of for the
And not
Epstein
have to release the
files.
Epstein files.
Right. And so once that happens, they have the clarity to be able to do that. So I was quite interested in that might
Uh,
be a super sneaky
they
Republic.
they
You're
they
saying think
seat they seat this person one day before the representative from Arizona, and then say, "Oh, now we're going to open. Go ahead and have
nah,
your
right.
vote."
And you vote against this, and you see the guy on TV. He's like, "Oh, well, I think the speaker has a really good transparency plan, and we have to think about the victims, and they're doing it the right way." And da
Yeah.
da da. So this clown is never going to actually
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Marjorie Taylor Greene has more integrity than some new piece of garbage from
Did
Tennessee.
you see the
Crazy.
tea that was spilled by AOC? So this is great.
No.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has been doing all the, going on TV, saying these things, and
Yes.
what she's saying in right-wing spheres and what she's saying in, mainstream spheres is different. So
Of
she's
course.
coming out in these, spaces, the kind of the general public spaces, and sounding suddenly reasonable and kind of anti-Trump. But then she goes into
Sure.
the right-wing spaces and it's still red meat. Like she's still
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nobody should believe she's now going to be the anti-Trump candidate. But AOC
Right.
put out a video yesterday saying, you may have noticed this change. And the reason for it is she went to the White House and said, I want to run for Senate from Georgia. And Trump said, no way, you're not the right candidate. And so she's
There you
being
go.
pissy. This is just like petty. I'm going to be, and so we cannot count on her to like vote for the release of the Epstein files because she's just, but stranger things have happened, right? Where she goes,
Right.
I'm so bitter. And, what Nancy Mace, I think is the other one, who was so, like there could be some defections that would even shock Mike Johnson. So that would be really interesting if, after this, somebody goes, I am fed up with I don't want to have Mike Johnson's reputation forever. And I'm going to stand up and separate myself. So that could blow up in his face if he takes a vote counting on a one vote majority.
Right. And also just the vote is damaging.
Right.
So like even if like imagine this. The discharge petition passes, which requires a full vote of the House, and then the full House Republicans vote to block the thing.
Right. And then they have to go on the news and say, it's not because I don't want it released, of course. It's because I don't like, and nobody buys it. Like nobody is fooled.
Right. This is the thing. Like I love having them on the defense.
Yeah.
Epstein has done it. The shutdown has done it. These elections will do it. Having them on the defense. Don't let them play. Don't let them. The plan of attack is attack.
Right.
Like, don't make the fascists play defense all the time. They're in power. They're in power. They hold all the levers.
Yep.
That's why the thing about the shutdown, I've been crushing them on that too. Because, is it a 60 vote threshold? You mean like the one they just lifted last month to confirm hundreds of Trump appointments at once?
Right.
You mean that one? That 60 vote threshold that the Republicans have changed dozen times in the past? They can't possibly do it now. What about this CR? What's in it? Why is it so special? Why can't a different CR be passed? So, like, it's great to keep them on the defensive. And what I think that's if we continue to do that while making gains in states and make protect, and again, I just like, and I don't want to sound like, I just mean like they're doing horrible things. People are forming human chains to stop ICE from going into churches and buildings and snatching kids. Like, it's necessary. The
Right.
federal government under this administration is doing horrible, evil shit. And I just think harm reduction and protecting the people in its scopes are important. But any last thoughts on from you on this wonderful, wonderful, hope-filled day?
I mean, yeah, like, I would say to everybody out there, have a day of hope. That is great. Have your day of hope, right? We should, kind of revel in the wins and also recognize, like you said, tomorrow we need to get back to work because
Oh
this
yeah,
is not nearly enough, right? Like you said, the
yeah,
fascists are still in power come tomorrow. And
100%.
somebody like Mamdani, who we're very excited about in New York, still has to deal with the fact that he is a mayor. Right? He is not the president,
Right.
and it is going to be incredibly challenging under a fascist regime. So we've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of work to do. Hold on to those victories. Let them motivate you, and recognize this is the United States has a long way to go to be a country with that is just and moral, and it is nowhere near it today.
Live up to, yeah, long way to go to live up to that shining city on the hill hope
Right.
that we've always tried to work for. This is a good step in that direction, but you're absolutely right. Back to work. It starts today.
Yeah.
1 year from now, and every single day until then is going to be a battle. So you
Yeah.
don't get to take off until then. Let's go. Let's make it happen. But listen, definitely enjoy the day. There's been a lot of doom scrolling. Do your hope scrolling. Take your mental health day.
Well, and I would say if
Enjoy.
you want to kind of inject yourself with some hope, pull up Mamdani's full victory speech and listen to the whole thing. Listen to the moment at the end when the music starts, and it is not the cliche music you are used to hearing at the end of a speech, and even that the crowd cheers for. Like everything about that speech will make you feel so hopeful and inspired. So listen to the Mamdani speech, and then when you start to feel down, maybe listen to it again.
There you go. Do it. Do it. Listen, it was a big, big day, and we're gonna keep pushing forward. Thanks, Ben. Really great talking to you, man.
Thank you. Great talking to you too.